You know that person who suddenly stopped arguing, who used to fight back, used to explain themselves, used to try to make people understand. And then one day, they just stopped. They didn't lose their voice. They didn't become weak. Something changed inside them, and most people around them have no idea what it is. But here's the real question. What if avoiding drama isn't what you think it is? Most people assume that when someone over 50 pulls away from conflict, it's because they're tired. They think it's exhaustion, they think it's giving up. And that's exactly where most people get it wrong. Because what looks like silence on the outside is actually one of the most powerful psychological shifts a person can go through. And almost nobody talks about it. Pay attention to this. Think about someone you know. Someone who used to react to everything, every comment, every disagreement, every little thing someone said behind their back. They were always ready, always defending, always explaining. And then something changed. Maybe it was after a loss. Maybe after a betrayal. Maybe after years of realizing that some people will never understand, no matter how many words you use. One day, they just went quiet. Not cold, not distant, just selective. They stopped answering messages that carried negativity. They stopped showing up to events where people only gossip. They started leaving rooms without explaining why. And the people around them, they got confused. What happened to you? Why are you so different now? You used to be fun. But here's what nobody sees. That person didn't change because they stopped caring. They changed because they finally started caring about the right things. And this is more common than you think. There's a detail here that almost nobody notices. When someone over 50 avoids drama, people assume they lost energy. But what actually happened is the opposite. They gained clarity. There's a pattern behind this behavior. And once you understand it, you'll never look at these people the same way again. Because behind every person who walks away from an argument, there's a mental calculation happening in real time. They're asking themselves one question, just one. Will this matter in 5 years? And when the answer is no, and it almost always is, they don't waste a single word. That's not weakness, that's precision. But most people will never understand this. Because most people are still stuck in a phase where they believe that silence means agreement, where they think that walking away means losing, where they feel that if you don't defend yourself, you must not have an answer. And that's the trap. Because the person who stays quiet isn't the one who lost the argument. They're the one who realized there was no argument worth having. Let me explain this differently. Imagine two people in the same situation. Someone says something disrespectful at a family dinner. One person reacts. They raise their voice. They defend themselves. They explain. They argue. And by the end of the night, everyone is uncomfortable and nothing was resolved. The other person, they heard it. They felt it. But they made a choice. They took a breath, finished their plate, and left. Now, who's in control? Most people think it's the one who fought back, but it's not. The person who left is the one who chose what gets their energy. And that choice, that one silent decision, is the most underrated form of emotional intelligence that exists. Pay close attention to this next part. People over 50 who avoid drama are not avoiding life. They're filtering it. And there's a big difference. They've been through enough to know that not every battle is theirs. Not every opinion needs a response. Not every person deserves access to their peace. And this is where it gets deeper. Because this shift doesn't just happen with strangers or coworkers, it happens with family, with old friends, sometimes even with people they love. And that's the part that hurts the most. Because sometimes the drama they're avoiding is coming from the people closest to them. They stop calling certain relatives. They stop engaging in group chats. They stop trying to fix relationships that don't want to be fixed. And from the outside, it looks like they're shutting down. But from the inside, they're finally breathing. There's a psychological concept behind this that most people never hear about. It's called selective emotional investment. And it's not something you learn from a book. It's something life forces you into. After years of giving your time, your energy, your patience to people who never valued it, something inside you rewires. You stop asking, why don't they understand me? And start asking, why am I still explaining? That one question changes everything. And once that switch flips, it doesn't go back. This is why people over 50 seem different. They're not colder. They're not harder. They've simply stopped performing for an audience that was never paying attention. Think about that for a second. How many times in your life have you explained yourself to someone who had already made up their mind? How many times have you poured your heart into a conversation that went nowhere? How many arguments have you won that still left you feeling empty? Now imagine doing that for 30, 40, 50 years. At some point, you stop. Not because you don't have the words, but because you finally realize that some people don't deserve them. And that's the revelation. The people who avoid drama aren't weak. They're not broken. They're not antisocial. They're the ones who finally understood something that most people spend their entire lives ignoring. Your peace is not a luxury. It's a priority. And protecting it is not selfish. It's survival. The moment you stop treating your silence like a flaw and start treating it like a boundary, everything shifts. Your relationships change. Your health improves. Your mind clears. You stop attracting chaos because you stop feeding it. And that right there is the quiet power that nobody talks about. So the next time you see someone over 50 who seems too calm, too quiet, too unbothered, don't assume they don't care. They care more than you know. They just care differently now. They've learned that the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest, that the one who walks away first often has the most to protect, and that sometimes the most powerful sentence you can ever say is nothing at all. Now let me ask you something. Does this happen to you? Or have you noticed this in someone close to you? That moment when you realized that silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Leave a comment. I want to hear your story, because there's something even more powerful than walking away from drama, and it's the thing that happens after, when the silence becomes permanent, when the people around you start to notice, when the ones who caused the drama come looking for you, and you're not there anymore. That moment changes everything, and almost nobody talks about what happens next.